doing a little bit of an update on what's going on. So I see that Frank the Tank is here, Sherry Edwards is here, Critters and More, 503 Menagerie, Coleborough, John Blau. Excellent. Sorry, I was focusing on the chat and got the snake out of the shot there. Gonna feed these guys in a little while. This is one of the males. Oh, the other male's in there somewhere. Oh, sorry, buddy. Let's see. See that Zero Cool is here. Rachin Keller. Excellent. Welcome, everybody. Good to see you here. And did I miss anybody? If I did, go ahead and chime in the chat. There's Vicabulous. And there's Frank again. He's back. Cool. Can you see the markings on this one? I'm trying to get them in the focus. Yeah, I think that's showing up all right. As you may know, this species varies quite a bit in, this subspecies I should say, varies quite a bit in the markings that it gets. Some of them have some reddish markings, some don't. Tropical Fish UK, hello, there you are. Welcome to you as well. Great, well, let's get started. A couple of things I wanted to mention. So, yesterday I posted on the Patreon page that there were a few garters left, because sometimes, someone gets on a waiting list and then they have to decline, which is totally fine. I understand that happens. It's a responsible way to do things. When you can't, you can't do it. It's okay to decline, obviously. So that opened up a few more snakes. So I posted them on Patreon. We had some people from Patreon who have shown some interest, and so as it looks like all the males are taken for sure, and there might be a couple of females left. The males, when I say taken for sure, I have someone local's getting, and then there's a list of 2 people on Patreon, and I'm waiting to hear back from one, so it's going to go to one of those 2 people. And so I've already spoken to you about garters, you know who you are, so there you go. Oh, it looks like I got a super chat. It's not letting me find out who did the super chat for some reason. Oh, it's Vicabulous. There you go. Thank you for the $5 super chat. With a snake. So I guess it's a $5 super chat for the snakes. I love it. That's great. Thank you. So yeah, so if you've spoken to me about the snakes, you know who you are, and we're working on that, just trying to, nail down who's getting what and who's getting what for sure and everything like that. So just keep that in mind. You can see these snakes are pretty relaxed once they come out of the enclosure. They don't like being startled from above. Young garter snakes especially really don't like that, but once they get out, they do just fine. Pretty docile species in general. Except if you scare him like that, but I did. Sudden movement in his face. Sorry about that. It happens. But I really do appreciate that Vicabulous. Let's see. I am going to see. Oh, there he goes. He's under there, and this is going to make for extremely interesting viewing until I put the food in. And I'm not feeding anything live. But here is dinner. And we'll see if they'll come out and eat for us. That would be fun. If they'll do that on camera. Let's see what happens. They generally come out pretty soon once they smell that. Oh, see? See how fast that was? It's pretty awesome. Let's see if he gets to it. I'm sure you're just about to witness the garter snakes eating. They generally are very fast to the food. So we'll just keep our eyes open and watch for that for just a minute. Yeah, they do love their food. That's one lovely thing about garters. You're not going to get too many problem eaters. I had a few picky ones from this batch. All but 2 of them were pretty easy to convert to the foods I wanted them to eat. And those went to someone who was happy to feed them other things, so it worked out. Happy to feed them the foods that they preferred, which is fine. They do just fine that way. So now we're going to get a bite. He's going to take a bite. Like I may have said before, these are the males. There he goes. he's got a bite, and I bet his brother's going to be not too far behind. So this one is pinky pieces here. I do and have offered earthworm pieces as well. They're another good dietary item. The pinky pieces, they grow a little faster on, and because they're more balanced, they have more minerals and things like that in them. So that's the food I feed the most, but I have offered them the earthworm pieces, and they eat those very well too. In fact, at first I was mixing both just to make sure that they would eat the pinky pieces, and then just kind of converted it slowly over. Found the yum yums, yes indeed. So Sherry Edwards, both of them are eating well. So she took 2 of them, shipped them to her home. And how long has it been, Sherry? It's been a little while. You sent me some pictures of it, which was pretty cool. Oh, I guess he doesn't want to come to the live stream. The bird doesn't. So interesting, Sherry, you mentioned red worms. So when you say red worms, are like red compost worms? Because a lot of people have problems feeding them those that they'll throw them up. And it can make them sick. So I'm wondering if you meant red worms or you're talking about some other kind of worm. Curious about that. Breakfast of Champions, right. 503 Menagerie. Bioactive. Do you ever add supplements to the pinkies? I do. Not particularly so often for the babies, because the pinkies don't really need to be supplemented because they're whole animals. But I do for the mother, especially when she was gravid. And right before she was gravid, I was giving her, I was putting some calcium supplements on them. Sometimes I'll put pigment supplements on them too. So yeah, I do that. Not terribly often, but I do it. Pocosaurus, greetings. DEA Exotics, welcome. And Vicabulous, just adopted my first corn snake, 1.5 months old. How often do you think I should supplement? Well, there's a lot of debate over whether supplementation of whole animals, if you're giving a rodent diet, which I assume you are with a corn snake, probably still working with pinkies, you don't necessarily need to give any because they're considered a complete diet. Some people want to give just a little touch of calcium because pinkies can be slightly deficient in calcium compared to an adult because their bones haven't calcified and so on. If you gave once a month, you gave a small amount of like a reptile calcium supplement, just dusted lightly like the back half of the pinky, you could probably do that. A lot of people would tell you it's not necessary, but if you did it once a month, I don't think it would hurt anything. Sean Meister, greetings and good evening. Oh, if you did an adult, okay. If it's an adult corn snake, and I've never supplemented our adult corn snake because it's getting bigger mice and stuff like that, so I wouldn't worry about it, to be honest. I wouldn't supplement at all. Kevin Zay, hello and welcome. Good to see you here in the live stream. Pocosaurus, it has indeed been a while. All right, greetings, Schoenmeister. Excellent. So this one has taken a couple of bites. I'm wondering where the reluctant brother is. I want to make sure they both get a bit of food. We'll look over here and see if the females, they're both looking at the food. One's getting over there. Yep, I can't move the females here without causing all sorts of logistical problems with the cameras, but okay, so Sherry Edwards, it's been 6 weeks ago, all right. So, okay, those jumbo red worms may indeed be a different type of worms, but if they're mostly cut up pinkies, then yeah, sounds like you're on the right track then. It's working fine. I'm glad to hear they're doing so well. It delights me, in fact, to know that they're doing well and in a great home. Oh, here comes the brother. I don't know if you can see him at the bottom of the screen. Very bottom of the screen. The other brother. Pocosaurus, I've been pretty well. Things are crazy, as always, but, you know, things are going 7.5 foot, 60-pound common boa. Holy cow, Kevin, that's amazing. 60 pounds. Are you considering putting that boa on a diet? Sounds like maybe the person who got it before you was perhaps feeding it a bit heavily. Okay, come on, little snake. You smell that food, go for it. I hope he gets there before his brother eats it all. Okay, yep, that makes sense, Kevin. Glad to hear that you are putting that snake on a diet. 2 rabbits a week. Yeah, that's pretty intense for one boa. True. So I can totally see why why the boa weighs so much. Yeah, you could probably cut down that to a rabbit a month and be okay. Yeah, for sure. Rabbit season, duck season, rabbit season, duck. I got your reference, Frank. The Tank, Looney Tunes. Okay, the snake who's not eating right now, he's going to let his brother eat his whole meal, is sitting over here in the left corner of the screen. I don't know if you can see him still. One jumbo every 2 to 3 weeks and lots of yard crawls. Yeah, that sounds a much more reasonable diet, for sure. Despicable. Yep, that was one of Daffy's favorite lines, wasn't it? Love it. And 503 Menagerie. So great to see you and Peter exploring in Arizona. What a cool trip. Trying to convince my partner she wants to look at bugs with me. That's the tricky part, isn't it? Yeah, that's how it is with my wife to some extent. I mean, she'll go with me when we go, I go looking for bugs. She's happy to hike and she loves the plants and the wildlife and the butterflies and things like that. Whatever she sees. She's not really into scorpions, spiders, solifugids, that kind of thing. So that's the part she doesn't really want to deal with so much. But well, he is eating. He's still going. Oh, there's his brother. Let's see if we can get his brother to eat something. I'm gonna try to sort of focus there without overdoing it. Well, I'll tell you, 503 Menagerie, my trip to Arizona was so fun. And I guess you saw it. So you know that you saw the first installment. I am doing, I just finished editing day 2 to be released at the end of this week. My day 2 of the trip, and then I'm going to be doing a day 3. I arrived on a Thursday, and Thursday morning, so we did most of Thursday morning. Then I was there. I mean, we had most of Thursday to do cool stuff. It wasn't just travel day. And then that was day 1, of course. Then day 2, Friday, we had the whole day to do stuff, and then day 3, Saturday, I had the whole day to do stuff. And then I left on Sunday morning. So it was a great trip, and I'm looking forward to releasing the other videos. It's been really fun. So I'm glad you're enjoying it, and others have said similar things. Pocosaurus, my pets have been doing well. Most of them have, yeah. Oh, the keep. See a vinegaroon in their native habitat. Well, no, not to be too much of a spoiler alert, but watch my other videos that are coming up. Let's see. And Newt's Commander, greetings. By the way, everyone, had a ton of great comments on Patreon, so I'm gonna pull that up and answer some questions. Hopefully, I don't remember if I answered this question before. This was Cappy, who asked a question a while ago, and I hope I didn't miss it. But just in case, I'm going to answer it. The question was, I think I understand the science of why isopods need moisture to keep their gills wet and breathing. Why do they need a dry area, and what makes some species prefer more dry or wet substrate? That is a great question. And what isopods have are kind of funny structures. They're respiratory organs, because some people refer to them as gills, some people refer to them as lungs. But I did read a study, and it's been a while, so forgive me if I kind of messed this up, but I read a study that explained that they can get oversaturated with moisture. It can happen. So it's good for them to be able to balance themselves, and it does depend on the species. I'm not sure what makes some species like that and some species less like that. So some species can be on a fairly moist substrate all the time, and some really need a dry area. I'm not sure why. We've just kind of learned that in the hobby over time, that is a thing. And so we're trying to, by creating a gradient, we're trying to make sure that we can cater to those that have those needs. There's the Keep, Moon Over Miami, Oscar Shaw, and Moon Over Miami. Glad you loved the video about my trip to Arizona. Stay tuned for the others. I'm excited about those as well. So I'm going to look at the questions on the post. Had quite a few comments there. That is the wrong one. I think it's this one. Got 11 comments, which is pretty sweet. So, and not all of these apply directly to answering this on the stream. Not all of them are like that, but most of them are, I think. So here we go. So Heather Cellini wanted to know, what would you recommend for a group talking about garter snakes? Does sex matter? Okay, well, the garter snakes, what would you recommend for a group of garter snakes? Like enclosure-wise, I'm guessing, and situation-wise, like maybe proportions of male and female and whatnot. I would say, well, I have a 40-gallon tank for mine, front opening. I have 1 female and 2 males, and that works great. You can do that with all females. You can do all males. Something I'm heavily considering, or seriously considering, let's put it that way, seriously considering doing is setting up another 40-gallon and making basically a sorority and a fraternity. So there'll be one that has just male snakes, male garter snakes, and one that has just females. And then when I want to breed them, I can take out the ones I want to breed and put them together, and then not have to worry about multiple clutches or hybridization or anything like that, because I don't really want to do more than 1 clutch in the spring. I think that would be overkill for me right now, and I do want to work with different species, and I don't want to work with hybrids, obviously. So I would say you can mix them. You can put males with different species of males. You can put males with the same species of males. You can put females together, and so on. Mixing them, the main thing is being really careful when you're feeding. With these guys, because I'm giving them minced food, it's not bad, and I'm watching them, right? So males won't fight, and females won't fight. In general, they'll be just fine. Oh yes, Heather, that's right. That's you. I get confused sometimes with the different names, but yep. So they don't. You can do groups. The main thing with putting mixed sexes in is you're going to get breeding. So only put mixed sexes of the same species and subspecies and whatnot, and only do it if you expect babies. Because even if you don't brumate with garter snakes, you have a pretty good chance you're going to get babies anyway. The cooling helps maximize and optimize breeding, but it doesn't. Not brumating your snakes doesn't prevent it. Let's put it that way. So hopefully that answers your question. Let me know if you have any other, you want some clarification on that. Okay, so I see I don't know exactly how to say your name, Nordanalvins, maybe? Welcome to your first live stream. Good to see you here. And next question from Patreon. Syndica says, my little ones have been absolute rock stars. Talking about the snakes, Syndica's also got some, just like Sherry, got some garter snakes from me. Says, super friendly, never musk, eating like champs. Excellent. Glad to hear it. Yep, I was glad to see that all the snakes I sent out were eating like champs. Like I said, 2 of them were eating, they were mostly on earthworms and live endlers. They were refusing pinkies. But all the rest of them were totally eating the men's pinkies. And so they all went to places where they were eating what the owner wanted them to eat, and they're all doing well so far that I've heard. So excellent, Syndicus. Glad to hear it. And Sandy is thinking about getting some in the future, maybe next year. Loves Ruby, my female. Okay, now we'll go to the chat, and then we'll come back to Patreon in just a minute. Okay, Oscar Shaw, I've been having issues with locally collected Armadillidium in Bulgaria failing to breed. I've never had issues with Armadillidium in the past. Any tips? Well, one thing, Oscar, this is a good thing to consider, is that the wild ones don't seem quite as frequent breeders as captive bred strains. Just tend to, I guess there's some selective pressure in captivity to breed more, and the situation, it takes them a while to adapt. So Armadillidium vulgaria collected wild, will they breed? Sure. Have I bred them? Sure. Does it take longer than captive bred lines? Often does. So that may be all it is, assuming you have plenty of males and females. That may be all it is. Taking some time to adapt, and they just don't breed as much as some of the captive lines. So let's see. Okay, well, I was close with your name. Nordenalvens. So meow, I have a red-sided garter and I was wondering how big these guys get. You know, they're supposed to stay fairly small according to one measurement that I read. All of mine have exceeded that maximum size there. And I don't think my males are particularly gigantic. But my female, I think she's over 3 feet now. Of course, the females get larger than the males. I'll have to measure them and find out. Mine are red-sided garters, the parietalis, not the red-sided garters infernalis, just to be clear there. And so you have a female. Well, she could probably get over 3 feet because mine has. Project Arthropoda. Curious, do you keep any scorpions currently? Do have a couple. I do have a couple. I have an Asian forest scorpion, for example. And I have another one that I haven't unveiled yet, but I will. But yeah, I do keep a couple of scorpions, and but beyond those, I've had other scorpions. It just occurred to me, folks, that the garter snakes have largely ceased eating, and I don't think that's very exciting to watch, an empty tank not eating anything. So let me bring something out and show you while they finish up their meal. I'm going to put their lid on and move them out of the way so that they can eat at their leisure, finish their meal. They both had some of it. They probably want a little more. They usually come back for seconds in a few minutes. So I'm going to put these guys away and show you something else so that you don't have to watch a largely empty tank. Because how fun is that? If you're waiting for something to arrive, I guess that could be fun. Like, you know, yours are just about to arrive at the FedEx hub and you're excited, so you're staring at your tank. But other than that, it's not very exciting. So let's look at something that's alive and thriving. Doing well. How about some Oreo crumbles? Okay, so Oscar, oh, you're seeing if you can isolate the trait. Yeah, it can be done. Hopefully it works for you. I did that with the high yellows that I now keep. I'm going to see if we can get these Oreo crumbles to eat for you guys. They'll usually do that without much fuss. So let's try it. Once they smell that food, they're usually out and about doing their thing. So we'll try it. Okay. So Ben's Bugs got some Cubaris Shiru Utsuri. Any advice? So that's, is it Cubaris species? Have they named it? Or have they changed the name to Nezodilo? I don't know. I can't remember. But you're pretty close there, because Shiru Utsuri is the common name, at least. And yeah, so I can't give you a whole lot of advice because I haven't kept that species. They're cool looking though. So Kevin, I just got on the stream. Did you answer my questions I sent on Messenger on air already? Messenger. I don't know. Did you send a question to me on Messenger? My phone is set up in such a weird way, I need to figure it out. Answering, there it is. It says, okay, have I ever done a closed terrarium build? I think the concept would be neat to explore as a potential project to do with my kids. Do you have any tips or advice on the subject? Also, do you think any particular isopods would be good for the project? I would like something that looks nice like zebras, but I know armadillidium species like a lot of ventilation when a closed terrarium would not be able to provide. Thank you for your time. Also, if you could turn this into a video, it would forever be my YouTube hero. Well, that sounds pretty cool. I've never done a completely closed terrarium with animal inhabitants. I know springtails can usually do pretty well in something like that. You know, they're not really doing a whole lot with that, are they? I am going to see if that makes any difference. Let's see if they find that food and do anything with it. Shall we? I don't know if it's going to work. But I have never done a closed terrarium with animal inhabitants, so I'm not sure. I think it's an interesting idea, but I don't know. That would be something that I would be interested in learning more about, though. Sorry, I don't have some more specific information for you. And Ben's Bugs, yeah, I get the Oreo crumbles that turn out completely white too once in a while, which is interesting. Once in a while you see those. Let's see, I'm going to go back to Patreon for a second And I actually want to show you a project I've been working on. Where did I put those guys? There they are. In just a minute, but I'm going to answer this Patreon question. It looks like some of these are eating anyway. So like isopods, are there regulations on where you can ship certain reptiles? Yes. Just to start, I know that Canada, between the U.S. and Canada, there are certain reptiles that are, completely illegal in Canada and are legal in most of the U.S. There are also isopods reptiles that are illegal in certain states. Some states, for example, only allow you to keep non-native species in that state, and so you can't keep. You might be able to live in a neighboring state, and keep the native species to the state next to you, but you can't keep them. But if they occur in your state, you can't keep them. I know that there are things like that going on in the United States, and then there are certain states where other species are illegal. The laws about keeping venomous snakes vary widely in different states, things like that. So definitely, I'm not, familiar with every single regulation in every single state, but I do know that they do exist like that. Hopefully that helps, and that's kind of what you're looking for. I hope so. All right, I'm going to move this out of the way and show you this enclosure. This is a party mix enclosure for Porcellonides pruinosus, so the same species as Oreo crumbles. This party mix includes Oreo crumbles. Sorry, the lid still sticks a little bit. I drilled the container myself. This was a Hobby Lobby enclosure. Purchased it, it's like a display case. Purchased at Hobby Lobby and drilled the ventilation myself. But the nice thing about it is that the isopods are pretty bold. They're used to light coming in the enclosure. They don't seem to be bothered by it at all. And they really go to town eating in this enclosure. I'm going to scoot this over just a touch. See where I can put this food and see. I bet we'll get a pretty robust feeding response from them in this enclosure. I think that'll be fun to watch. Look, there they go. They're going to town in there. Okay, Ben's bug. So it's Nezodilo. So they did change it to Nezodilo, like they did with a lot of the other Q-bars. Cool. Archangeli. Okay, cool. And Zero Cool Ninja 88. All your isopods I ordered from your breeding and looking great. Excellent. That wasn't very long ago. So I'm glad to hear that they're already breeding. That's always a great sign. Let's see. So Kevin's, which species did you get from Mitten Exotics? I deal with Dan regularly. He's a good dude. He is a good dude. I think the only isopods I have now that I got from him are, I think, the only ones I ever got from him. But it worked well. They came in really nice, and they were great ones. Were my original rubber duckies. My original rubber duckies came from Dan, and they all came in healthy. There were some really nice big ones in there. They were dark colors. They got me started out with some great genes. So, yep, Mitten Exotics, great place in my experience. So Frank the Tank, I've never seen the white Gestroy, but sounds like Vicabulus has. So Kevin Stryker, interesting. You've seen some where people had isopods in them, and did they ever indicate how long these cultures have been going? Oh, fungus net alert. I would be interested to see that. And Ben Bugs, you got some orange cream morphs of the Porcellonides pruinosus. Awesome. I actually had some of those too, and they were doing super well. And that was when the weather started to change for summer, and the temperature changed very drastically, and we started using, more air movement and everything. And in the little enclosure I had them in, dried out really fast, and they died. And I was so sad because they were doing great and breeding like crazy. Eileen O'Donnell, hello and welcome. I noticed you had a question on the Patreon. I wanted to make sure I got a chance to address your question. Do isopods eat sphagnum moss? I just realized how a large amount has disappeared from one of the colonies. Didn't know if this was something they break down. They can. I've seen it happen. And it seems to vary based on the situation. I think there are things they'd rather eat. But in some and it also depends on the species, but they will often do that. I've seen it happen. Yeah. I've seen them break it down and eat it pretty quickly. But I think it's just, like I said, it's something that they'll eat if they have to. They're not super excited about it if they have better things. Okay, so let's see. Coming back to the chat, and then we'll go back to Patreon again. We'll just jump back and forth a little bit, huh? Okay, so got Eileen's question. 503 Menagerie, I'm out of the loop. Some of the cubaris are reclassified now. Yeah, some of them are in the group Nesodillo, Nesodillo. I've seen several of them have been reclassified there. I'm not sure if all of them have been, but I know that some of them are. So Kevin Zay, do you have any other snakes besides the garters and corn snake? Currently, no. Currently, I've got the 3 parent garters, several baby garters, although most of them have gone to new homes, and then 1 corn snake. Really interested in getting more snakes in the future. Totally want to do that. Looking at possibly a boa of some type. Maybe a reticulated, super dwarf reticulated python someday. I don't know. We're still thinking about it, but we're excited to get into some snakes, including some bigger snakes. So Kevin, you also got some giant canyons. Awesome. So Theropod Hunter got the Isopod mystery box. Ammaculatum yellow. Awesome. One on my list. Oh, P. Sevilla. So Porcellio species Sevilla. Awesome. Porcellio magnificus and Cubaris species penguin. Excellent. Pretty good group there you got. That's a nice mystery box. And it sounds like Eileen's snakes, because she picked up a couple of our snakes too, are also continuing to be great eaters. So that's awesome. Glad to hear it. Like some of the rest of you, I think Sherry sent me some pictures of them, and Eileen sent me a video of them and stuff, which I really appreciated. It was fun to see them in their new homes. So Sevilla seemed like a really cool one. A lot like Hoffman's A guy, but not exactly the same. Let's see. Now we're going to go back to Ashley N. Some on Patreon. What are some tips for controlling outbreaks of mold in isopod enclosures? Well, I'm going to give you a couple of pointers that I have. Okay. Before I get into that, though, any requests for other isopods? It's fun to look at the party mix, I know, and they're eating and they're doing great there. And I do like how this enclosure turned out because it's fairly small, but I like the fact that you can see into it. What I like to do sometimes is I'll feed right here, like you can see the remains of a snake skin right there. I'll just feed here, and this works kind of like a little slide. The food gets trapped here, and the isopods just build up right here and eat all the food, which is fun. So fun enclosure, Hobby Lobby adaptation. I wanted to show you a couple of other isopods while I'm answering these questions, though. So tips for controlling outbreaks of mold in isopod enclosures. One is when you set up the enclosure, if you can, do a break-in period with just springtails. Seriously, that's a huge thing. It's going to make a big difference. Set up the enclosure well in advance of getting the isopods. A month if you can. I know you can't always do it, and I don't always do it. But if you can, set it up for a month with just springtails in it, and then it's going to go through a bloom of mold for a little while in general, and the springtails will help keep that under control, and then by the time you put the springtails in, a lot of that stuff is going to be over. So hopefully that helps. Now we're going to get some requests in after I showed these. This is my Porcellio ornatus nord culture. They're doing pretty well. This is a fairly new culture, but it's about time to move it to a larger bin because I don't know if you saw all those on and off. Not so many on this bottom part of the wood, but they're all in the leaves. And I've noticed that there are a lot of them in there now, just hanging out in the leaves, so I'm going to move those. I love the appearance of these. They look super cool. Let's see. Okay, we got a couple more requests. We got a request for Hoffman's guy. Let me grab that. I'm actually going to show my Hoffman's egg eye black because it's a newer culture, but I've got lots of babies recently that I noticed, and I wanted to show you that. So let's take a look. It's a pretty new culture. But look at all those babies! And they get big. I really like the Porcellio hoffmannsegii black. So there's some big ones in there. Looks like they need some more leaf litter, but they're doing pretty well. And I do need to move them to a bigger enclosure because they're reproducing pretty well. But I think I'm not entirely sure yet, but I think I might actually like Porcellio hoffmannsegii black better than the nominate form. It's a different locality. It's not a morph per se, it's a locality. But they're pretty cool and doing well. And need some more leaves, I noticed when I opened this up. So I'm going to have to give them some. There's some hoffmannsegii. Somebody else asked for flavomarginatus, which are doing great, by the way. Also need a bigger bin. So let's take a peek at them. I love the fact that they're always out and about. Things that hang out more on the top of the substrate: zebras, Armadillidium maculatum, Porcellionides pruinosus, dairy cows, Porcellio laevis dairy cows, Porcellio laevis milkback, and Porcellio ornatus, and Porcellio flavomarginatus, this one, are all ones that tend to hang out. There are some others too, but those are the ones that come to my mind, and not bury themselves in the substrate so much like, say, rubber duckies do. These are just everywhere. Love these. The flavomarginatus. Definitely need to move. I actually split this culture not long ago, and you can't even tell. It's like still full of lovely little isopods. I wonder if they'll eat for me. I'm not sure if they will. If they'll eat if I put food on top of this. I haven't experimented with that so much with this species, but I want to see if they do. So Kevin, I hope that helps. That's kind of been my experience. Oh, I just dropped a piece of food right in that one's face. Probably didn't appreciate that much. I seem to be unable to put a piece of food in a place that might be advantageous for the isopods to eat it. I don't know what their feeding response is going to be like, because I usually just toss the food in this species and let them go. There's a tiny little baby running along. They look like kind of the reverse of the adults almost. Let's see. So 503 menagerie, Armadillidium tend to be a little slower than some of the Porcellio. It depends. I mean, some Armadillidium are really fast. It depends on the species. Which species are you working with? My leaf litter, I can collect it in my backyard. I don't spray my trees, don't spray my grass, don't spray my garden. And I've got lots of trees. I've got about half an acre of property. And yeah, it works great. It's kind of fantastic. Lots of different leaf types. So critters and more. Been making big batches of isopod substrate and then take it from a bin as I needed. Do you do this? And if so, have you ever tried seeding the substrate with springtails in this type of scenario? I think it's a good idea. That would be a good way to do it, because you're kind of cycling the substrate, pre-cycling it. Like it. Haven't done it, but I like the idea. It's a great idea. If I ever get enough space to do that indoors, I will do it. Let's see. So critters and more, you had a question if... Oh, so Ashley, I need to go back to Ashley's question about controlling outbreaks of mold. That's a preventative that I like. Of course, springtails, and I know you know that. Springtail helps. Also keeping food off the base substrate and just putting it on leaves or wood or something like that. And I'm sure you know that one too. Increasing the ventilation a little bit in the container is good. That can help control the mold outbreak, as well as removing, of course, whatever is molding at the moment as much as possible. But getting a little bit more cross ventilation in that bin, like some of these holes across on all sides, can help. All right. So let's move on to critters and more's question about maculatum. Would Armadillidium maculatum work with the garters as a bioactive cleanup crew? My first inclination would be yes. They'd probably do great. I'm going to put these flavomarginatus away because they're not moving around a whole lot right now, and pull out something else. What should we take a look at? We could take a look at my orange Dalmatian magic potions right here. See, they've been reproducing pretty well, looking pretty good. See them there. There's some more on this piece of wood. Not a whole lot under there, a couple. I think you can see a bunch in the moss too, of course. Very pretty. Love these. All right. I'm going to put a couple of pieces of food in there for these guys. I think the maculatus would work well with their garters, critters, and more. They probably would, based on the fact that I have Armadillidium Montenegro, Armadillidium klugi Montenegro with mine, and they do great. So yeah, I think they would. Do I typically put in dwarf whites in my bioactive setups along with my display species, or just the display species such as the klugis? I do not put dwarf whites in with them, because the dwarf whites will outcompete the others eventually, almost for sure. It's almost inevitable that they will do so. These are some Armadillidium vulgare high yellow, not my strain that I'm working on, not the night gold, but a high yellow out of Britain that is kind of like a Punta Cana, meaning some of them get a very yellow color and some of them look wild type. Some of them look kind of mixed in there. They're pretty cool. You can see there's one or two there. There's one, a large one moving around that looks very yellow, kind of like a Punta Cana. Pretty cool strain. Like these. So yeah, I think the dwarf whites would outcompete whatever you put in there eventually, so I would not recommend putting anything else in there. Just go with the klugi or the maculatum if that's what you're going to do. That would be my advice. And then Sandy Sizemore wanted to know how I feel about using red wigglers in Isopod substrate. Some put worm castings in their substrate. May adding worms can provide the castings and some aeration. They can, and they won't necessarily do any harm, but they will decrease the lifespan of the substrate because they go through it so much faster than isopods tend to. They're just going to process it really fast, and so what you're going to end up with is just earthworm castings in there really fast. And so the isopods are not going to get the nutritional benefits of the other foods in there. They do like earthworm castings and they'll eat them. But you see what I'm saying? You're just going to reduce the nutritional quality of the substrate a little fast. But it can be done. People do it. So Ashley N, another question. Isopod question. I observed my Gestroy guarding a mate. It's not mating behavior. They just seem to stay on their back for hours, even days. Have you seen this behavior? Yes, that is a pretty common behavior in a lot of isopods. I notice it especially in Armadillidium species, like Armadillidium maculatum, do that a lot. These are T-negative albinos, by the way. Armadillidium vulgare T-negative albinos. Like these a lot. I'm not usually a big albino person, but for some reason I like these. They remind me of butter, and I think I say that every time I look at them. But their color is pretty cool. And they're less common albino. The T-positive albinos are more common than these in the hobby. So it's kind of fun to have these. I like these. So hopefully that answers the question. And catching up with the chat. 503 Menagerie has a lot of different Armadillidium pennyback golds, zebras, Croatian giants, and some vulgari, but they're pretty new. Okay. Well, they do take longer than some others. And certain strains, like some of the magic potions, can take a really long time before breeding. So I had my magic potions, my first group of magic potions. They can also be male heavy with some of the magic potion strains. So I had them for months and months without breeding them the first time I kept them, and then they eventually died off. And I think I may have all just had males. But then I got them again, and they're going to town. They're breeding really well. So hopefully that helps. Kevin Stryker, what do you think the minimum number of zebras should be to start a colony? I like to start with 12 to 14, but you can do it with less. Definitely you can. I don't see, a problem with doing fewer than that. but I like to start out with a fairly robust group. So yeah, but if you start out with 10, you're fine. You could probably get by with fewer than that. Not going to be a problem. So let's take a look. This is my Japanese magic potions right here, the Japanese line ones. There's some hanging out in there. Look at those. In the egg carton, what do we got in here? Couple in there. I just barely moved them up to this big bin because they were kind of looking overcrowded in the smaller 6-quart tub. But they're doing well. They're breeding. There's lots of babies in here. You probably can't see a ton of the babies, but you can see some babies of various ages there. They really started to kind of blossom. So there you go. Put a couple of food pellets in here. Put them back. Let's see. Let's look at the Punta Canas while we're here, because I can easily reach the Punta Canas, and they're everywhere. Punta Canas are doing really well. Probably need to sell some because they're breeding like crazy. There, let's see. There's not a ton right there. There's more hanging out right there. Well, they're looking pretty good. Okay, catching up if I can. Probably going to miss some. So Noah, the garter's doing great. Sold most of them. Got a few left, but most of those are now spoken for. But they are doing absolutely great, and it sounds like those who were in the chat who adopted them say they're all doing well. Okay, so Sandy says, on the worms then, what do you prefer for keeping substrate aerated? Cocoa chips, fir bark, mulch, rocks? I usually use just kind of ripped up leaf litter and stir it into the substrate, and that creates some air pockets. That seems to work really well. So that's what I do. And it seems to be enough. Let's see what we got. Oh, underneath here. Not a ton underneath. There are some. Not as many as I was thinking there might be. There's actually kind of a lot of them just right here on the side. Kind of crazy group of Punta Canas there. So Theropod Hunter, glad to see you were able to get another into the Isopod hobby. Armadillidium gestor is a good species to start with. I love that species. Probably, if I had to pick a favorite Armadillidium, that would be certainly up there. Maybe the favorite. Let's see. So Eileen, do the egg cartons essentially just buy the more real estate, or they break it down too? Both. I try to keep it on the drier side, and there's a lot of surface area. Works really great for things like the Porcellia hoffmannseggi that require little territories. Armadillidiums seem to like it a lot. But if it gets wetter, they'll start to break it down. And you have to watch it so it doesn't get too wet and get moldy or whatever, but it works pretty well for both purposes. They will eventually break it down. It's a fairly new thing for me, but I've seen that happening. And Oscar, think I should get more into microgeckos, huh? I am kind of intrigued by a lot of microgeckos, to tell you the truth, especially the Spherodactylus. I think those are kind of fascinating. The only small geckos I keep right now are the morning geckos, and I kept those for years, but there's some other microgeckos I would be pretty interested in keeping. And Newt, I think the isopods do help keep it aerated to some extent. That's a good point. So Kevin, yes, handling bigger snakes is quite the experience. There are some that I have handled. I used to actually work with bigger snakes to some extent when I worked at a zoo, and not really huge ones, but boas and pythons and stuff like that. An eastern indigo snake, which was great. I love that snake. And it's a fairly large snake too. And I love it. I just haven't kept them. Iridactyloides are cool. I've been interested in those too. And the gonatodes look cool as well. So Ben's bugs, maybe you need to take a little video clip and send it to me, and I'll put it in one of my videos if you don't mind, if you want to. We could do that. Just of big boy. That'd be fun. Yeah, dairy cows will go nuts. That's true. They're one of the most prolific species out there and morphs out there. Okay. So I think I answered Ashley's question about the mate guarding. Lots of species do it. I see it a lot with the armadillidium. I see it with Porcelia laevis too. And I think the idea behind mate guarding, the reason why that's a thing, the reason why the species do it is that once they have mated with it, once a male has mated with a female, it wants to give its sperm the best chance of fertilizing the eggs, and if another male were to mate with the female right away, then the other males would have nearly as good a chance of fertilizing the eggs as the initial male. So by mate guarding, they prevent another male from mating, and then their sperm has the best chance of fertilizing the eggs. And once they do, basically that female is going to produce multiple clutches of young from that male. So he's, his DNA are in pretty good shape, and that's why that works. That's why they do that, I guess. So Angela Beasley would like to know if dairy cows would do well as a cleanup crew for American toads and or White's tree frogs. Would they present any danger to the animals? Great question. I don't think they would present much of a danger to White's tree frogs or American toads, but I think the American toads and the White's tree frogs would very likely present a danger to the isopods. You would probably get a lot of predation. Probably lose a lot of those isopods. So you probably wouldn't have to worry about those isopods overtaking the tank, but you might have to worry about, oh, there's a dead one, that's sad. But there's just a few gathered up here. I wonder where they're all hanging out. These are some gem mix. Oh, there's a decent amount of the gem mix under there. There's some more gem mix. I'm liking the gem mix, really like it. Just wonder where they all went. Oh, there's a bunch in that corner over there. There's some gem mix. They're starting to get some variety in colors. There's a ton of them over there. What's going on in that corner? In the dry corner. I guess they just needed to dry out a little bit. They're mostly young ones in here, which is interesting. Mostly the young ones hanging out. I started out with a colony of about 20 or so adults, maybe more than that. And some of those have died off, but the babies are doing pretty well, it looks like. But I'm a little concerned that I don't have very many adults in there anymore, but I guess they'll catch up. It does happen. Okay, I'm going to pull some other isopods. Let's see. So this is the funny thing. 503 Menagerie is saying dairy cows are the only ones that have died off of all the 18 kinds. Everybody has their own that die off and their own that don't. Like some are bulletproof for one person and die off for another. It's so weird. It doesn't even seem to make any sense. So these guys, these Armadillidium gestor, I love these. This is what happened with me. I got a ton that were tiny little babies. When I first got them, that's all I got. They were just tiny little babies, maybe 20, and they were just tiny. And they grew up, took forever to get to a size at which they would breed, which is typical for these, typical for this species. And then they bred, produced lots and lots of little babies, and then the adults proceeded to die off, most of them. And now I have a ton of little babies that are all doing well. I have 2 bins full of these guys. I don't think there's a whole lot on that piece, a few over there, but most of them are piled over here. Got another bin full of these, and they're doing well, but lost most of the adults. Don't know why. Weird. Things happen, I guess. So I haven't experienced a whole lot of die-off with dairy cows at all, and so I'm not sure what to tell you there, but I would say just, keep good husbandry. Make sure you don't overcrowd them. Make sure that you don't underfeed them or overfeed them, and that should go a long way. Make sure they don't dry out, like you said. Excuse me. Whew. Sorry about that. I wanted to show you this. This bin has been set up for almost exactly a year, just a few days shy of a year. And people have been curious about it. So this is what happens when you put some baby milk bags together with baby orange Porcelaia laevis. They do not appear to crossbreed at all. I have no evidence that crossbreeding has occurred. I do have a little bit of out competition going. You do see oranges in here, but the oranges are less common. Thank you. I'm getting some bless yous from my sneeze. Thank you. I appreciate that. Yeah, they're not breeding with each other. They're breeding. I'm getting, I put a bunch of juveniles in here and they've produced generations and clutches of babies, but no mixing at all. None, zero, zip, nada, niente. And thank you. Yes, we're getting close to the 1 hour mark. Mac Nicholson. Yeah, those sound like species you could definitely find it there. They are, you have a fairly humid state. It's a pretty good place to find things like Oniscus ocellus. I don't find those in my state, never found them here. I don't know if they exist here, but I have never seen them. There's Ian Alicia. Excellent. Welcome. Here is another Porcelaia laevis morph. This is California mix. So they produce wild types. They produce sort of a white. They produce a milk-backy form. They produce a kind of a peachy form and a peachy milk-backy form. There's a lot of them that come up. There's a peachy milk-backy form right there. I like those. So it sounds like Ashley can't watch because there's no power. Okay. Well, hopefully everything goes okay. And I hope I caught everybody's comments in Patreon. If I didn't, please let me know. I did my best and I think I caught everything. But if I didn't, let me know. So the one thing about the California mix is they run away. They're really hard. They're not like the dairy cows that are brave isopods, bold. List with pictures or something I can use to identify the wild isopods in my backyard. Kevin, I like to use bugguide.net. It is a great resource if you're trying to identify just about any arthropod. So that's what I would go with. Bugguide.net. It's helped me identify isopods. Oh, looks like I got some slime mold going on in this one, but these are my Porcelaio scaber lava. They're doing pretty well, it looks like. I actually need to upgrade this bin, I think. Make a few changes to it. But the isopods themselves are doing great. Breeding really well. Yep, I definitely have some slime molds going on right here. And that often happens when you get leaves on the moss, which is not where I put it, but some people forget that and put it there, so that does happen. It's not a huge deal, but I don't like to see too much of that because it means the leaves are being put on the moss where they don't really belong. But the isopods look like they're doing well. Let me see if I can get to the zebras. It can be hard. I'll have to make a few changes. It's just going to be logistically difficult, but I think I can do it. Let me see. I can get my smaller bin over there. This is like one of my backup zebra bins. I can get that over there. I don't think I can get the big one over here very easily right now. My microphone's tripping over things. But I'm going to try. Let's see. Okay, yep, I can get the backup bin over here. Let's see, there's some zebras in there. In the backup bin, yes. All right. Yeah, I have a much bigger bin, but it's just It's hard to get over here, so it is not here. But there we go. All right, I just realized what time it was. So thank you, everybody. And sorry that the resolution, at least on my end, is coming out a little bit fuzzy. Thank you, Vicabulous, for the super chat. Thank you, patrons, for all of your excellent questions on Patreon. I hope I was able to cover them all. I think I took a stab at it anyway, of addressing every question that showed up there. Hopefully so. And yeah, please do check out Wally's new video. Wally deserves all the support that he can get, for sure. And yep, Ian, Alicia, thank you for showing up. It's always great to have you in the chat. Zero Cool as well. Sherry, 503 Menagerie. Thank you, everybody who showed up. Please make sure, if you haven't watched my video on my Arizona trip, go show it some love. It's done fairly well. Done better maybe than some other videos recently, but not as well as I had hoped. And if you haven't seen it, go ahead and watch it and give it a like, share it somewhere, whatever. And make sure you catch the one coming up this Friday and the one after that, which are going to be continuations of the same trip. I really loved that trip with Peter Clausen from Bugs in Cyberspace and with Jesse Green from Shapes in Nature. They both are in Sky Island Adventures. Great trip. Please watch it if you haven't seen it already. It was so fun. So, and leave a comment. Let me know what you thought. What was your favorite critter that I showed? And I'm looking forward to your reactions to part 2. So thank you, Frank, for posting that in the chat so everybody can give that a click. And I should go, but it's been great. And I hope to see you all soon. Stay healthy, stay safe.